right, we locked in right now. It's the Wheel1 podcast. Your boy Master Toys got a special guest in the cut right here. It's my friend Maddy. You know what I'm saying? And she's gonna introduce herself to the people, and she's gonna tell you guys about tell me about yourself. We get right into it on the podcast.
So Maddy. I live in Scarborough currently, and I'm a florist. Nothing too exciting on my end.
The flowers are very exciting.
Yeah.
A little education
there.
It's
fun.
So we usually we get right into it. We dive deep. So we like to talk about the family upbringing. Siblings, all that. We want to hear all the good stuff and all that.
Sweet. Okay. Well. Sibling wise, I have an older brother, but I am the only woman in my family. It's all men. So that's a life that I lead. But yeah, I don't know.
Now how does that as growing up, how is that how did that affect you being the only woman, only girl around?
I feel like it turned me into that stereotypical tomboy really early. And I felt because my family didn't know how to raise a girl, they were we'll just raise you as a dude instead. And so
it sounds bad, but I don't have any children, but at the same time I always thought if I were to be a girl dad, I might do something like that.
I feel like most dads are like that, though. The moment they have a daughter, they're I need to teach her to be a weapon of mass destruction
because she has to defend herself.
Yeah, because all of a sudden they think back to all the times they were shitty to women, and all of a sudden now they're oh my god, I have a daughter. I actually have to respect women and teach her that. Oh my god.
And it's a scary thing because I'm not gonna lie to you. I've been a scumbag before in my lifetime.
I think we all have at some point in time. I feel like that's a human experience.
Yeah, definitely. But at the same time, I look back on it, not a good thing. And it's if I do have a daughter, I really want to teach her to stay away from certain things, and if you have to, be able to punch somebody in the face.
That's true. I think that's a viable lesson that everybody needs to know.
Very true.
Do no harm, but take no shit.
Exactly. So. That's a big thing that I like to live on. But so tell us about some hobbies and passions that you had when you were a kid, growing up.
Oh, okay. So
wait. Hold on. Before we even get into that, before we even get into that, let's talk about when we say the upbringing. Where are you from originally?
I am from Tel Aviv, Israel.
Ooh.
Fun, I know, especially with everything that's currently happening there right now. Yeah. It's a harsh topic. Obviously, I don't support what the fuck is happening because, those are Zionists, not Jews. I feel like I need to preface that.
The difference.
Yeah, so I grew up there for a while for the first half of my childhood, and then my brother and I were given up for adoption, and I ended up in Canada, in Scarborough, with this lovely older couple. They're basically, my grandparents, but I learned everything from these people. And unfortunately, my mother passed away in 2020.
I'm sorry to hear
I'm
that.
currently taking care of my dad right now because he, they're older, so he's 85.
Okay, yeah.
Kind of being raised once I came to Canada, it was kind of hard too when you're at school and everyone's who's the old person picking you up? You know what I mean? I realized that's my mom. But yeah, and then ever since I came here, I've been living in Scarborough, representing Scarborough.
Okay. Yeah. See, now with growing up, back in Tel Aviv, how was that as just as a child? Because for me, growing up here, I haven't really traveled that much. I'm not gonna lie to you. So it's I love hearing the experiences of people from other places.
It's a different atmosphere, and I don't want to sound super depressing either because, I loved my time there and my family was there and, it's still my country in some form or another. But, we learned a lot about because, this whole war that's happening has been happening for centuries.
Yeah, of course.
And so, as a young kid, you were taught to go to the bomb shelter and stuff like that. And, we all coexisted together. I felt some of my closest friends were Palestinian and, unfortunately, I feel a lot of us kind of how do I explain it? We kind of tuned out a lot of what happened there because, you know, there was bombings and other, you know, other type of things. So as much as I like love Israel because that's where I'm from, I'll probably never go back. And that's just a reality of the situation, you know, because especially with the war that's happening right now and everything like that. But, you know, I enjoyed Israel for what it was, but I will always call Canada my home.
See, like, I appreciate just that whole thought process right there, because just, it's crazy to think, like, when you said as a kid, you're, like, kind of taught to, like, go to, like, the bomb shelters. And it's like, when you're saying that to me, it's like, wow. I couldn't imagine that as a kid, like that normalizing that, like that type of atmosphere. And so it's like, I can understand what you mean, where it's like, you love it for what it is, because like obviously it's where you're from, but then it's like you know, when you look at the reality of things, it's like, you know.
Yeah, and like, you know, I'm a proud Jew, but I'm not a Hasidic Jew, and that's a completely different aspect, and there's different rules to it. And Israel was predominantly, at least when I was back there, Hasidim. And I didn't follow that type of path or scripture. And at least here, you know, you can just be a typical normal person here.
Yeah, that's very true.
But, you know, when I first immigrated here, like, I still had those aspects from Israel, right? And, like, when you're a kid, can be cruel, right? Very cruel. Kids can be so fucking cruel. Like, I love them to death, but, like, sometimes it's too much.
Like, I always heard there's three types of people who are honest: drunks, people who are angry, and children.
Oh, that's a pure fact, you know. And you know, when I came here, I was wearing, like, so in Jewish culture we have a headdress called a tishel, and it's cover your hair, and I wear it pretty frequently, just not as much as I used to.
Okay.
Because I'm showing my hair right now. But you know, kids at school would be like, why the fuck are you dressed like that? You know, you're here in Canada now, you don't need to be like that.
They're trying to make you, like, assimilate to the melting pot.
Of course. And, like, of course I did as a kid. I just wanted to not be bullied.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and then you find out later on in life they'll bully you for other things, too. So, really, there's no win to this
situation. It's fucking regardless.
Yeah, no matter what. So...
Yeah, that's the funny thing that we learn about, like, you know, growing up as kids. But, like, speaking about, like, you know, growing up as kids, like, some of the passions that you had as a kid, like, does any of them are they still, like, currently in your
100%.
life?
I've been drawing since I was a kid, and I still draw now. Art will always be a part of my life, and I can't see my life without it.
Now, tell me, like, how you first, like, deep dived into, like, getting into, like, art in general.
I was always fascinated by, like, art galleries and museums and cinematography in general. Like, I was one of those kids, the parents, you know, they put you in front of the TV a lot. And I remember, especially here in Canada, Art Attack. Do you remember that man saved my childhood? I loved him. And I remember just being like, fucking crafts? Yes. Right? Because I'm not good at math either. So, like, I was just like, I had to choose something. Yeah. Yeah. And then, you know, I played a lot of sports growing up too. But I feel like what stayed the most is my love of art and reading. Like, I think it'll always be there because... You know, I think as artists, we struggle that we always have to promote our work. We always have to make something to post onto social media. Yeah. And only as of recently, like, I can admit this, even in the past 6 months, I've just been doing stuff for myself, which has been really nice. It's a really nice change.
Because, like, I feel, even me too, like, I'm not, you know, I would say an artist, like, in your form, but, like, you know, it's being someone who, like, kind of, like, creates things. It's, like, I feel the same thing where it's, like, I feel like the pressure is, like, if I don't continuously create something new and put it out, no one's gonna give a fuck about what I'm trying to do.
And especially with the social media algorithms, man. Like, if you don't post every fucking day on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever it is, you're lost in the abyss of it.
Exactly. And you miss a lot of good things in there, and a lot of, like a lot of greatness, I like to say, because it's just a lot of people who are just overlooked.
100%. And sometimes, like, I just have no patience for social media. I don't.
I agree. I totally agree with you, because I always say social media is usually people's highlight reels.
Yeah.
You know, it's that they never show the down times. You know, it's just everything's all good, all gravy.
Yeah. Like, actually, I'm just crying in my bed right now, but I'll post this selfie because that's what Instagram tells me to do, you know?
Felt cute, might delete later.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man. But, like, speaking of that, like, you know, with the social media and everything like that, and, like, even with you being an artist, you know, I'd like to talk about like how your views of society also, yeah, just how your views of society is like as a woman, and just like, you know, with you being also someone who's immigrated here to Canada, and like even with your experience, you know, we'll get a little bit into that later about like your experience in the, you know, in the military as well.
You know, the patriarchy sucks for everybody. That's how like it, for men, women, cisgendered, non-cisgendered. It sucks for everybody, and we're just trying to fucking navigate at this point. And sometimes I look at, you know, before when I was younger, I felt like I depended on social media a lot. And I felt like, especially when you're bullied and you feel alone, like I was that kid, stupidly, let's be honest, like on chat rooms when I was younger. I was that girl on Omegle at like the age of like 12 or whatever, and even before that, because I took advantage of the fact that my parents were older. They knew nothing of the internet.
So they don't know what you're doing.
No, they did not know shit.
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel like we've watched the trends go with social media. Like I was the person on Tumblr, you know, and Tumblr was sick until it basically became like 4chan again. And I was a 4chan, and I hate to admit, this is where my degeneracy is going to come out. I used to cruise on 4chan all the fucking time. And, you know, you get to see the pros and cons of social media. Pros being like you get to learn so much more than what we did back in the 90s.
Yeah.
You know, we get to learn more about what's actually happening in society. Whether it's
real
negative or positive, we get to actually be informed. But I also think we've become with a society with social media is the basis for every argument. And I feel like social media has now become like a reference book. Instead of using actual information,
it's like
for an argument.
It's like it's not facts if it's not on the social. Which is like,
and I think it's hard too, because like you could have a differing opinion even though it's of the same moral as somebody, and you end up getting canceled. And I have nothing against people who genuinely do get canceled for being creeps, whatever. But to a certain point, where are we at in society with canceling people?
Yeah, like the whole cancel culture, I've never been a fan of it, because like obviously I feel like some people, if they do disgusting things, obviously like,
of
you
course,
know, don't listen to them. We shouldn't. But then some people, it's like I feel like we're getting to a point where we can't have conversations, and I feel like conversations that clash, which is ridiculous to me, because how do we grow if we're just 100%. Supposed to agree with everything?
And I feel like also we're at a society now that if you had an opinion 2 years ago, and even though your opinions changed since then because you've learned new information, you cannot be that new person. Exactly. You will always be remembered as, oh, you said that shitty thing like 5 years ago. And don't get me wrong, like you should be held accountable for what you say, but I feel like we're not giving people the benefit of the doubt to actually learn. We're forcing people to be like, you're fucking wrong, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, there's almost like no room for redemption.
No, not at all. And it's frustrating because you can tell that the thing that we all want is for people to not only hold themselves accountable, but to learn. But now you're forcing it to being like, even if you learned a new thing, you still won't be accepted.
Yeah. And that's the sad thing about it. And I feel like people put too much power into like social media and the internet sometimes, and that's why those things become relevant and they're able to happen, because it's like I feel that in essence, like I always feel like I'm one of the last kids to like actually go outside. I'm like, you know, of course I grew up with the internet, but it's like, you know, we still went outside.
No, we went outside all the time. It was until the lights came on, you know what I mean?
Street lights come on.
Street lights came on, and then you came inside. That was pretty much it. You know what I mean?
And so it's like I remember that lifestyle. So it's like I do remember life like without all this stuff,
100%.
and it's like it's great to live it like that. And then I feel like now, since so many people are focused on everything that happens on the screen, that they feel like, okay, this is the final. I think too,
because like, don't get me wrong, like I battle with my own issues of anxiety and depression and stuff, and like of course, like there's some introverted love for social media because you get to be at home but not actually socializing with people. And I also know that it's hard, especially during the pandemic, where at this point it was our only way of communicating with people. But man, there's just times with social media I just gotta dip out.
Yeah, because it can be way too much.
It's too much. Like, I hate sounding like this because there is some form of privilege with it, but like there's just some days, man, I don't want to read about who died. And that sounds really privileged. I understand that. Sometimes it's just so hard. It's so emotionally draining to just go onto social media. You want to like a picture of someone's dog, and instead you're reading about like the slaughter of animals or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God. I haven't had my coffee yet.
And it is crazy because it'll hit you right, like, you know, right one after the other. It's right on your timeline, just
oh
like,
my God,
you know, as you scroll. And that's the funny part about it. Like, but that's what I feel. It's one of those things like a good and evil.
Of course.
It does so much great, but at the same time, there's so much negative that can come with it that I don't think people recognize it.
I agree, and I also feel like, you know, I was in the beginning, you know, I was totally an SJW, like social justice, where I'm gonna go fucking argue because I fucking love arguing.
Yeah,
and
I'm one of those people
love
too.
making people mad. Like,
I love that shit too.
yeah, right. Like, you know what? Like, my favorite response to people when they're talking, I'm like, "Can you explain that further? Can you explain that further?" And then to the point where they get really frustrated. But I also came to the realization that, like, I have my views and I have my morals, and I know I'm an okay person, and I don't necessarily need to post it online for it to be valid.
And I feel like that's the security that a lot of people need to gain, because I feel like too many people look to gain that security and satisfaction from other people on the social media instead of realizing that.
Or I find that they're like, you don't have the morals if you don't post about it. And it's like, just because I don't post about it doesn't mean I don't have it. It means I'm taking care of the people in my life that it's directly affecting first, and they know me in real life to know that I'm there for them and I support them. Just because I don't post it online doesn't mean I don't care.
Exactly.
You know?
It really matters what you do in real life, because, like, you know, people be posting online like, oh, this is, you know, all this is such a tragedy, but they really don't give a fuck.
Yeah, they don't give a shit. Yeah, right? Like, they don't give a shit. Like, you know, earlier we were talking about, like, where I'm from in Scarborough, that shooting that happened on Valentine's Day. Everyone's acting like they care, as if shootings haven't been happening in my area for such a long time. You now care? Because it's been happening for a long fucking time and none of you gave a shit. So maybe that's a bitterness of me that I have to work on too, because there's sometimes where I'm like, this stuff has been happening for so long, why do you care now?
And I feel like it's just like you said, it's a trendy thing, because, like, you know, and especially when it's a splashy headline, like you were saying, because it's like, you know, young kids and everything like that.
Yeah, and even like the Blackout Tuesday thing. Why do we need black squares everywhere? Also, you're just ruining it for the algorithm. So now, like, black artists are not even being found because it's just these. Yeah. Yeah, they've done absolutely nothing since.
Yeah, that Blackout Tuesday thing, I did not like that. I was one of those people that did not post a black square.
I did not do that either.
You know what I'm saying? Because I was like, what the fuck? Because I was like, what the fuck is this shit? I'm like, all I see is a black square. I'm like, how does this help anything? Like,
no,
it's not, you don't even have like a Black Lives Matter. It's just blackout. Like,
it's just blackout.
Like, that doesn't
like,
mean shit. Like, you're better off just not coming on here posting anything for the day than just have it just be a dry day. Wouldn't that make more sense? The boycott?
I know, and it's just, man, I don't know how trends happen. I really don't.
I mean,
I feel like an old lady saying that. I'm like, I don't know how the trends come about, but I don't.
You know, some people just think things are cool and they just catch on to it. That's what it is.
You know, and it's tagline for like a month. And then it's like they completely forget about it, as if these issues aren't still going on.
Right? Like, that's the thing. Like, people always forget that these issues are so deep that, like, you know, they don't get
It's hard to, like, just put it in a social media post. I think that's the thing. Like, if you're gonna really go for it, like, help out with charities. You don't necessarily have to donate money either. Just donate your time, you know, to these issues, instead of just making it a social media thing or a performative act, you know what I mean? But, like, the thing is, too, I have to laugh at people who are like, well, you know, Starbucks, for example, right? And I was like, of course they're performative. They are a corporation.
That's what they're going to do.
I may be biased because I used to work there. So I was a barista at Starbucks for quite a long time. And so I saw how the business went. Like, it's performative as shit. Like, why are you all shocked?
For real. Like, with those big corporations, they're always going to put something on to, like, you know, make it seem like they care about things. Because, like, If they don't, then people stop buying their shit. Like,
yeah, but ultimately, even if, for example, even if 100,000 people stop buying from McDonald's, McDonald's is still a multi-million-dollar business.
Billion,
even better, even better. See, like, people are still, like, they're still gonna make money. Unfortunately, and I hate saying that, but it's true.
Yeah, it's just
2.5 million customers across Canada daily.
Yeah, that's insanity. I feel like that's just Starbucks on a fucking good day.
I mean, pretty much, because like you'd be surprised, like with all the people that come through and flow through these places. But okay, now, like one thing I honestly do want to get into, like I said we were gonna talk about it earlier. So as you can see, my friend Maddy, I think one thing people would not believe about you, which I didn't at first, is that you had time in the military, and I kind of want to know about your whole experience with those couple years that you were in the military. In the military. Jesus Christ, I can't talk.
I love it. Okay. Well, to preface, I was not in the Canadian military. I was in the Israeli forces. You are conscripted to do your 2 years. So I did longer than 2 years, but I did my time.
Can you say what that means, conscripted to do?
Conscripted is where you're forced to do it, is the government run. Like North Korea does. North Korea and South Korea also do it as well. You're conscripted. You have to do your minimum of 2 years. Or you get in trouble, whether it's prison or something else.
Jeez.
So I had to do my time. Usually a lot of people are shocked that women are in the military, but Israel's pretty mellow about that, surprisingly. Like, they're like, anybody has to be in the military. Like, we have to put everybody in,
we don't care. Everybody can get it.
Yeah, literally, it could be a goat. Get in here, like...
Did you do your 2 years?
Did you do your 2 years? No? Fuck off, I was fucking 18, man. And like looking back at my 18-year-old self, like I would have punched myself in the face, I was pretty lost. Like the military, at the time I was rebelling pretty fucking hard and I was dealing with a lot. And unfortunately the military was an escape, but also a hell at the same time. Boot camp sucks.
I can imagine, because like when you see videos of those type of military boot camps, it's just like, I wonder how bad is it really.
It's more of like how sleep deprived you are, and it's also noticing like a lot of people's different upbringings. Like a lot of people, you notice, like obviously most people are crying during boot camp, like at least for those 3 days.
Yeah,
you are crying. You are a mess, and drill sergeants don't give a shit. They will rip your soul apart, right? But I needed, like, I don't want to commend the military because it's the military.
Yeah.
But I can admit when they helped me become a more secure person, they helped me, not be such a shit disturber. Like, I got my shit together with the military.
A little bit more disciplined.
Yeah, 100%. That's the perfect word, disciplined, because I had none of it in my life. And even though obviously mental health stuff was really affected while in the military, I could be thankful of that. And it also gave me a routine. And I thrive. I'm one of those people. I thrive on routine. I need a routine or my whole life is gone.
I'm the same way. Like I have a literal morning routine, a little workout that I do after. Like if I don't, I really feel like everything's just thrown off now.
Yeah, I need a schedule. I can't focus my life without a schedule. And then after I'm done everything on my list or in my schedule, then I can dick off and do whatever.
Exactly.
But I need that schedule. And I know some people make fun of me for it, but it's the only way. The only way.
You gotta know what works for you. That's the thing. Because all cars don't run on the same kind of gas.
100%. And I commend people who do a lot of freelance work and can kind of live their life less structured, because that thought of that gives me the worst anxiety possible.
See, I'm kind of in the middle, because I do like a routine and a schedule, but at the same time I do love being a freelancer every once in a while, where it's just one of my favorite sayings is always never take life too serious, because you'll never make it out alive.
100%. 100%.
And I honestly live by that, just for the main reason where it's just you just never know when things are gonna happen. So it's like you might as well just like have fun and everything. But it's the same time, it's a balance of things where you do need to be disciplined and know when you need to get your shit done.
For sure. For sure. I don't know. I don't really have much to say about the military. I think it's like the only time why you really get chatty is obviously with fellow soldiers, right? Because when you have a bunch of soldiers together, we're all douchebags. All of a sudden, any decorum we've had in society is now gone. Just completely gone.
It's just one of those things. Like you just got to know when you're in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I completely understand. Understand. It's like when I get around a bunch of wheelchair people. It's
of
like,
course.
the normies, they wouldn't get us.
They wouldn't understand.
They wouldn't understand, But like you were talking a little bit about like how it did affect like your mental health, and like a big thing on the show, of course, as is a mental health aspect, and like I like want to dive into like a traumatic situation that you've had in your life that maybe first open your eyes about mental health in general, or one that, and like how did you cope and get through that?
I think it's kind of a hard thing because obviously I've dealt with my own stuff, but I think I witnessed a lot of mental health struggles.
I think
like
that's something
my
people
own
don't talk about a lot.
Birth mom, she had her own struggles, and now as an adult I could see why she did the things she did. I think as a kid I was like, what the fuck, like you're supposed to be my mom, like why are you just laying in bed all day? Like, I need help. But, I think it's always, unfortunately, it's ran in my family for a very long time. And my brother and I, one of us had to get it. Unfortunately, I was the lucky one in that regard. But also, too, like, the mental health in the military, too, like, you're running on no fucking sleep, getting yelled at constantly in harsh conditions. And it takes a toll, and you can only be told you're trash so many fucking times before you snap. And I remember a vivid memory I had was, so we had to do a thing called 24-hour duty where I'd be standing in the same spot for 24 hours.
Are you
no
fucking
sleeping.
serious?
Yeah, you're patrolling, and it's usually like we all do it or whatever, and we rotate that shift. And I remember after my 24-hour shift with a fellow soldier of mine, we had to go to the gun range because every month you get tested with your shooting skills to make sure you're up to par, that type of thing. And I remember just being so fucking exhausted. I remember being like, this isn't safe. Like, I'm about to shoot a gun. I'm fucking half asleep right now. And I remember one of the guys in my battalion, he just started losing it. He goes, I can't fucking do this anymore, and he was screaming at the top of his lungs, and the sergeant's telling him, like, sir, like, shut the fuck up, like, you're gonna listen to me. And I remember he brought out a knife, the guy, and he put it to his own throat and was like, if you don't let me sleep, I'm going to kill myself. And I remember seeing that and being like, unfortunately not surprised either. But I remember how scary it was because it was that moment of like he was willing to off himself in front of everybody because he just wanted an ounce of sleep, and how that really takes a toll. All he genuinely wanted was at least like 5 hours of sleep without it being interrupted, and like the stress of missing your family too on top of everything.
See, these are some things like I couldn't really imagine because like you never think of the thought process of that, where it's like you can be pushed to your limits so much where you would say, it's like if you don't let me sleep, I am going to permanently sleep because I'm at this point where I don't give a fuck. Yeah,
and all they did was give him 2 weeks off, and he had to come back, and I was like, I told him too, I was like, way to get a fucking vacation. But you knew what I meant. I was like, dude, just get some fucking sleep, my guy. Like, just,
Yeah, like that's the best you can do in the meantime, between time, because it's like, I couldn't imagine, because like you said, being so sleep deprived, and then, like you said, it's not only being yelled at, it's like the insults at the same time, too.
Yeah, and also, like, a lot of people, like, even though it could be a stereotype, but it's a true thing, is that a lot of soldiers end up with substance abuse addiction because we get paid a lot of money and the only place around is a bar. So people drink, and then it ends up being like their whole paycheck goes to the bar because you just keep a tab going, And I felt like that's why I can't say the military fully helped, because I went from having substance abuse problems in my teens to not, and then back to it again in the thick of it, because there was nothing else to do.
And like that's the one thing, like you have to have recreational things for people, especially like in a situation like that where you're putting someone else in it. Like you already know their life that they're living is going to be harsh because of what you're going to put them through, and then at the same time you don't have anything for them to do after.
And like we'd also be sharing barracks. So barracks are like the rooms that we all like to stay in or whatever. You're sharing a room with fucking somebody, and you guys are both pissed off, and like, you know, room checks are like the crucial thing every morning, and if your roommate doesn't fucking clean up, you're in trouble too. And they know what they're doing, right? Because if one person fucks up in your battalion, you all get punished for it. So it's this whole ideology of like, I'm gonna fucking kill that person who fucking did it to us this morning, like, you know. Damn,
like, and then that's a crazy like whole thought process. So like, how did you even cope through that to get through that to like, you know, get to a better space?
Honestly, you know, with my past of doing sports and stuff, I've always really liked activities. So like when we would be doing PT, which is personal training in the morning, I just put a lot of my aggression into that because it was a good release. But I could also fully admit during those times I was fucking lost. Like I felt like I was a ghost coasting through those years.
I feel like a lot of people are generally lost when they're going through a rough time like that too, and it's hard to kind of like find your way, you know. And
it's also hard because, like, you know, I wanted to quit the military so many fucking times, but then you have family that's like, oh my god, I'm so proud of you. And you know, they brag to like their family friends going like, yeah, my daughter's in the military, and then I'm just there like like, I don't want to fucking be here. And, you know, there's this whole dichotomy, right, in society where they're like, oh, respect our veterans, but at the same time, let's not give them any jobs when they come back out.
Which I don't understand, because it's like that's the one thing I honestly hate, because it's like everywhere you go and you see someone like they serve in the military, they would say, oh, you know, thank you for your service. But then at the same time, it's like usually when people come back home, their lives are always fucked because there's no like bounce back, like I said, where there's jobs, nothing for them to do. Usually.
Now I know in the American military they have like 6 months prior to your leave, they put you in a class where they help you get hired, which is great. That's how I got hired at Starbucks, because Starbucks actually hires veterans. So I was like, perfect, cool. And they pay good money, good benefits, everything. So I was like, fuck it, like I'll work at a coffee shop. I'm not beneath that. So and I love coffee, as we discussed earlier. Free coffee. But you know, and it was hard too, because like I think as any Israeli soldier, if there is one that does watch this, they'll understand that like you then get irritated at other militaries because like, no offense, like the American military is a fucking joke. And they get to go party and do whatever the fuck they want. And then there was us who had to be in bed by like 9 p.m. and be up at 4 every day. So it was just like, fuck. And like, so one of my times I stayed in South Korea for a year. And so South Korea, beautiful place, would fucking move back in a heartbeat if I could. Yeah. Great place. But it was a whole like barrack situation. There was American soldiers there, Canadian soldiers. It was an amalgamation. And like, you know, the Americans are going out partying on Friday night. And then there's all this Israelis like, we have to go to bed. Sorry.
See, like that, I couldn't even imagine how that would be. You guys are both there for like very similar causes, and it's like, we're going out to party, but you guys are staying in because
the Israelis are way too fucking serious. That's the problem. We're way too fucking serious. And you know, like, not to shit on Americans, because you know I became good friends with some of them. I even dated an American soldier at one point in time, and like, you know, the military is hard for them too, and it's going to be hard for everybody. But of course, there's going to be a little bit of bitterness because you're like, you guys get to go do push-ups. We have to run up a mountain today. Like doing the ruck marches or whatever. Ruck marches are where you have like a really fucking heavy bag filled with shit. You walk forever.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And like, what kind of distances, so like, you know, to explain to the audience, like, you know,
9 miles.
Ooh.
Min minimum. And one time in South Korea, though, because South Korea is fucking beautiful, we'd have to do those ruck marches up a mountain, which, to be honest, so worth it, because by the time you got to the top of the mountain, it was fucking stunning. Yeah, the view. And then going back down was the fastest fucking thing you ever did.
Yeah, because it just all downhill now.
Straight up. I'd just be like, this is my favorite time. You know?
The inner athlete in you just kind of takes over right there.
Of course. And like, even the food in South Korea, fucking bomb. So cheap too. The cigarettes there too. Everything. Everything in South Korea was Korean barbecue. There is more than just Korean barbecue, sir.
I'm not. You know, like I said, I haven't traveled. I don't know too much.
But yeah, no, that was like, at least with the military, I met so many different walks of life too.
Yes,
and you know, a lot of my family was also in the military. Like, it was like a common thing, and you know, I initially saw it as like a career point, and thank God I did not pursue it, because I think I would still be miserable. The money was great, but being miserable, yeah. Also, I didn't promote or support the ideologies that they were promoting.
I feel like eventually, like, it sounds like you had to have that, you came to that fork in the road where it was just like happiness and morals over, like, you know,
100%,
career
like,
path and all the rest.
And don't get me wrong, like, I shit on people join the military, because I shit on myself for joining it, right? But I also know that, I think, you know, a lot of people who are like, defund the military. I agree, but you don't understand, there's a lot of people who join the military because of the funding.
Very, very true.
A lot of people are really fucking poor, man, and they would rather sacrifice their bodies to the military, because at least it puts food on the table. Because the cool thing is about the military is, if your spouse, for example, is in the military, you don't have to work, and you get a house.
Oh shit.
You get your own house, but you live on base, which is fucking annoying. So it's all the same houses, same military families, all that jazz.
Yeah. So there's always the pros and cons to everything.
Yeah. And, you know, at the time, my ex, he wanted to get married, and I was like, I don't want to be a fucking military wife. I told her, I was like, I'm not being a military wife. It's not happening, because I'll fucking kill you. Because if I can't do anything, like, if I can't work or anything, what's the point?
And then you're kind of just locked in, almost in a little, like, you know, little box.
Yeah, and I told him to be my military wife, but he didn't like that either. So, like, make a decision, you know?
Yeah, he forgot that it could go both ways, you know?
Exactly.
Oh, man. So now, like, I want to know, like, in a sense, like, what were your, like, first thoughts, like, when you kind of, like, went through situations like that? Like, aside from this, the military, but, like, mental health situations like we were talking about, like, earlier, where you said you had, like,
unfortunately, I guess I take it in a very cold manner. I completely shut down inside. I process things way later, which probably shouldn't be a thing, and I can admit that, but I find it's easier when the situation is happening. I just want to help the person, and then my feelings later will come out when I'm alone. So
how do you feel like that has been, like, you know, going forward, like, with dealing with people in general, like, you know, the fact that you kind of, like, a little
sometimes, like, obviously, like, before, like, I started going to therapy like a long time ago, so I've been pretty diligent with therapy. And, you know, I'm on my own mental health medication. I'm not necessarily promoting medication, but there's nothing wrong with taking it if need be, right? Of course not,
because I feel like that's one of the things, like, again, people, we need to normalize, because, like, sometimes we all need things to balance us.
Yeah, you know? And, you know, there's some days where I really fucking need that serotonin. I really do. And I know that my brain chemically will not make it. So I have nothing against, you know, medication. If people don't want to take it, that's great on you too.
It is what it is, because, like, I there's no shame in it, because, like, for me personally, I think about it, since I have, like, an injury that's physical, and, you know, I always say people, like, give me, like, the benefit of the doubt to things, but it's like, at the same time, I still have to take things, like, for my bone density.
Yeah.
Because if I don't do that, my bones are gonna get weak, and I'll probably break a leg or some shit.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, even muscle atrophy and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we're now have also, like, back to society a little bit. I feel like we've all met, like, there's nothing wrong with au naturel. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's also nothing wrong with modern medicine too. and we can have both. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Like, I'm sorry, that turmeric shot is not going to cure my fucking depression, ma'am. Like, I like, don't get me wrong, like, I know you're trying, but doing my chakras and saging the house is not going to change how I feel about a trauma that happened to me when I was a kid. Like, I'm sorry. And I feel bad because I see people who do it and live your life. You know what I mean? Like, I'm totally about it. If it makes your life better and if you're fucking happy, go for it, you know? But I can't. Don't make me do it. I'll just be really mean.
Oh man, it's kind of because like honestly, I get where you're coming from. Don't get me wrong, because like, you know, I feel like there has to be a balance of things. Have I saged down a couple places? Of course.
No, of course, and there's nothing wrong with that. Especially like apartments and shit. You need to like,
of course,
you need to
yeah,
fucking
you know,
bless the hell out of this fucking space.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, you need all the good vibes. That's fine by me.
I totally get it, but at the same time, it's like, like you said, there's a balance of things. Like, you know, like everyone has like different things that helps them get going. Like for me personally, it's sometimes it's sitting down and talking to 1-2 people, because that's why I love therapy personally. Because like that's when I like really realize that if I kind of just get this out, like I don't feel as bad about it.
See, I used to hate therapy, but I love the therapist I have, and I found her quite a few years ago. Her name is Ursula, and it's hilarious because I'm Ariel. When I had the red hair, that used to be our joke, but she is so chill to talk to, and it feels like I'm having a conversation. Like if I was having a conversation with you, that's what it feels like with her.
I love that. Like my therapist, you know, Martha, shout out Martha, but you know, it was the same thing where it was just like I felt like I was just having regular conversation, and I just loved it. Where it's to this point where it's like I was able to open up more and then realize more things about myself, because like, you know, that's 100%. What we're talking about.
Sometimes you just need to hear your own voice say it.
Exactly.
Sometimes you do, because you don't realize. Because like I know, like I talked earlier about, like I self-implode. And then when I totally burped into this microphone.
That's okay. I've been burping all day. I've been gassy. It's okay.
You know, after you talk about it, you're like, oh, that fucking makes sense. But sometimes you gotta kind of put yourself through it,
exactly,
in order to like get it, you know.
It's like, you know, you can't explain how it feels to get burned until you get burned.
Yeah. And you know what the cool thing is like what I love about Ursula the most is that I could tell her something really shitty and she'll just look at me and go, that fucking sucks. And sometimes that's all you need to fucking hear. I don't need to hear about how I have complex PTSD or whatever. I just need a fucking conversation with somebody who's a neutral aspect in my life. Because as much as you can talk to your friends, family, lovers, whatever, there's always going to be some form of bias, right? And I feel bad because I've had this issue with past partners before too. They'll be like, why don't you talk to me about stuff? And I never mean it in a mean way. I just mean, I'm too logical, so my brain is like, I can only talk about this with a therapist. Until you have a psychology degree and you break up with me and become my therapist, I will not tell you anything.
It's kind of funny because, like, you know, I can understand that, because like after actually dealing with the therapist, like I totally get it, because like, you know, with me dealing with Martha, it was like I didn't want to talk to anybody else when she wasn't there.
Yeah, right.
I was like, I want to talk to you. I don't know you.
People take it so personally if you don't open up, and it's like, but I don't want to. And especially even on social media, I don't want to have to tell my fucking story to make it valid.
And I feel, sorry.
No, sorry. But like, I don't mind that people do, like, go for it, own it. It's just, there's some things I don't want to post on social media. And there's some stuff that I just want to talk about with the people I care about. And
there's nothing wrong with that. And I feel like that's the one thing that like people need to like really realize more, is that sometimes you just need to talk about things with your peoples, and not everyone needs to know about this.
Yeah,
because 100%. It's a you thing, and it's all about how it's about you improving yourself. Because like usually when we're in these like stupors, you know, we're just trying to get better. So with you improving yourself, you gotta do whatever you gotta do, not show everyone what you're doing.
Yeah, like honestly, sometimes for me it's just taking a fucking shower. And that's gross, I know, but real talk about depression is some days you're like, I'm going to go a week without fucking showering. And I can get away with it because I'll just throw a hat on and some deodorant.
No.
And then after my shower, I'm always shocked. I'm like, oh my God, I feel so great. And then I'm like, you fucking idiot. Like, I mean, you just take a shower and feed yourself. Like, that would.
But sometimes that feels like the mountain.
Yeah, it does. It feels like a huge fucking mountain. There's times where I have to talk myself into taking a shower. Like, I'll be standing there naked in front of my shower, like, we gotta start. And I don't want to.
I feel like sometimes, and like, it's good that you even like push yourself to even to the edge of like right there to do it, because like that's the start. You know?
And I feel like I hate when we see in society, like, you especially see it now, it's like the it girl where like in the morning they wake up at 6 a.m, they have breakfast, they work out, they write in their journal about their manifestations for the day, and then they write about how like what they're like grateful for, and then they make their like avocado toast, and then they go and do their homework, and then they go to dance class, and then they do this, and I'm like, no,
who has time for all that?
Who has time?
Matching set.
Yeah, and they always wear a matching set, like a romper or like the cool loungewear thing or whatever, and their hair is always done, and the makeup is done, and everything is done. And I'm like, some people, yeah, but for some people, the biggest obstacle is just getting out of the fucking bed in the morning, man.
For real. And like, I feel like you said, it's something that needs to be talked about more, because since everyone's showing their highlights and they're showing things like this it girl who, like, let's be real, does not probably do all that every day. You're like, who the fuck can, like, and really,
I
like,
tried it.
up.
I remember one day I fucking tried it, and I just felt like I got a PTSD flashback of being in the military. I remember being like, because I got up, right, and I was like, it's 400 hours, and I'm like, oh no, like, I then started doing my push-ups, my whatever, and I was like, I can't do this.
You were like, no, this feels too familiar to some shit.
No, it feels too familiar, and like, I don't mind doing that shit, but like, I just feel like as a human being, we shouldn't have to accomplish all that every day. If you want to accomplish little things, that's great. If you want to accomplish all that, that's also fucking great. But it's not a necessity.
Yeah, I feel like the big thing, like what I've said before, like, what I've heard from other people too, is that like getting that 1% better a day. Because it's like, we don't always got to be fucking 60% better than we were yesterday.
100%. And sometimes like everybody's lifestyle is completely different. Like, I don't have kids, so I'm not, in comparison to maybe like a single mom who has to get up early, get herself ready, feed the kids, get the kids ready, and do all of that. That's a different lifestyle, And I can say I'm lucky in the sense of like, I have pets that I take care of. I take care of my dad, and that's a lot to deal with, but it's still easier in the long run. In comparison, I'm not influencing a child, which is so scary to think of. Oh my god,
a creature, like,
oh my god, I have a godson, and I love him to death. He's 3. My best friend Nicole, shout out Nicole,
shout out.
And she's a phenomenal single mom. But I look at her and I'm like, dude, I don't know how you do it, because he is hyper beyond comprehension. Like from 6 a.m. onwards, he thinks every day is Jackass. Like, he literally is Johnny Knoxville. He's like, welcome to Jackass, I'm Johnny Knoxville.
He's just crashing into shit.
Yeah, like he wakes her up with violence every morning. She gets kneed in the face, and I'm like,
oh god.
I'm like, dude, you have more patience than that.
Yeah, I'd be fighting my son if you kept doing that to me.
I also feel like I was raised, if I tried to do that shit, I was beat.
Yeah, honestly.
I was smacked upside the fucking head. Like, it was not.
Yeah, back in those days, that would maybe be considered child abuse. The things that would happen.
I know, and I hate laughing about it, but it's so fucking true, because I feel like, I've talked to younger people, which make me feel so old. But like when their parents are like, they would put me in timeout. I'm like, bitch, timeout didn't exist.
Yeah, that was never a thing for me.
It was whatever was in my mom's hand. Like, if it, like, thank God, like, I didn't piss her off in the kitchen or whatever, because she would like use a frying pan, whatever. She'd be like, you fucking stupid.
And like, that's the thing, like, because like, my parents are like from Jamaica, so they immigrated here.
Yeah,
obviously me growing up here, I'm not gonna lie, my mom and dad watch the show, so I'm not gonna lie, and you guys, they did not beat me much. You know what I'm saying? I got away with a lot, but I did catch my 1-2s.
Yeah, of course.
And it's one of those, like, it was one of those, like, I kind of appreciate it in the long run, because I felt like it kind of, like, in my sense, for me, because like obviously it wasn't a point where I felt like I was being abused, but it was more like, I know I fucked up, probably I deserve to
I
something.
felt like I never knew the concept of what abuse was. Maybe now I could be like, they abused my brother and I a little bit, but like at the same time, we turned out to be better people. Like I
That's what
remember
I'm
my
saying.
father's big thing was like, no offense, I'm not negotiating with a 4-year-old. Because I remember people are like, you can't hit your kid. My dad's like, she has no concept of right or wrong. He goes, until she gets to an age where she knows what the difference between right or wrong is, I won't have a conversation. I will establish who's right. Yeah. And that's hard, but at the same time, like, 4? Come on, at 4, you have no logic of anything.
I mean,
At
that's
the age of
what
4,
I'm about to say.
like, yeah.
It's that hard give and take where it's like he's got a solid point. You can't really say nah, because it's like what you really gonna let a 4-year-old run your household? That doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense.
no. Now, would I raise my kids like that? No.
Exactly.
But, you know, I turned out okay. A bit. A little bit. At least I
You're
turned out
functioning
okay.
in society. It's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, you know,
You're getting by.
I'm not trying to kill people, so it's fine.
I think if you do that, that's an accomplishment.
Exactly. And I think, too, like, when our parents were raised, too, it was the norm.
Yeah, exactly. Because like when I speak to my parents about how like their parents raised them, they would say it themselves. It's probably child abuse.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
like
straight up. Straight up. I remember one time when I first immigrated here, I got to see the C&E for the first
Ooh,
time. You know, that was the highlight. I was like, whoa. And anyways, I had run away to go look at dogs, and my father was like, where the fuck is she? And he found me, and in front of everybody, he pulled my pants down and beat my ass in front of everybody. And I remember this one lady came up to him and like, you know, that's abuse. And he goes, do you want her? Yeah, you get to have her. That backpack she's wearing, that's everything she's bringing with her. So you either call child services or you shut the hell up. And the lady turned away, and I was like, ma'am, I'm getting my ass whooped in public. Can you please help me?
help me.
Help me. That part, Kevin Hart part, that was literally me as a child. Like, help me. Help me. I'm being mortified in front of everybody. Like, I hated it. Now I just laugh at it, but like,
I mean, that's the funny thing. That kind of leads into one of my next questions, where it's like, you know, how we've in life a lot of times I feel like people take the pain and turn it into like a positive and use it as a motivator. And like, you seem like a person that definitely does that. So like, how have you done that?
I feel like I have to, because before I used to wallow in it, and I came to the conclusion I love wallowing in misery, but it doesn't do anything. It just continues a vicious cycle.
But I like to say, like, that kind of like really kind of reminds me of like almost like when I read I think it was I don't even remember the book right now, but I do remember that it had something about like negative. Whenever you're going through a negative time, it's like watching static on the TV.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, it sounds like when people like sit there and just watch the static constantly, you can get drowned in it sometimes.
100%. And you can also get to a point where you've become so used to it, the thought of that pain not being there is terrifying.
Oh, it's the weird thing about being comfortable in the pain.
Yeah. And I felt like that's something I had to deal with a lot, and I'm still processing even through therapy, was that I enjoyed destroying myself, and that's something that you always have to just work on. And I think it's easier said than done, though. And I think too, it's also hard because on one hand, you want to allow people to feel how they feel because it's justified, and you should feel how you want to feel. But when do you stop? When does it become not helpful to you anymore? And I don't want to say for people to forget what has happened to them. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that you can't be angry if somebody did something to you, but I think we have to work through it. We have to just live with it. And I hate saying it like that, but it's true. You just have to live with it.
See, like, it's funny, like we were talking about this earlier, like, you know, before we started filming, and I feel like for me, as someone who's like gone through a lot of pain, I feel exactly what you said. We do have to live through it, because you can't just dwell in that, because you forever get lost, and like from there you just do a lot of things that are just completely more destructive, and it's, you know, it's just
and you don't even realize, man, until you're in the thick of it. And then you're like, oh my god,
What the fuck am I
what the
doing?
fuck is happening? Or you're like me, you wake up in some coke den, you're like, how did I get here?
But you know, it's just crazy. But like at the same time, I do feel like we need that pain because it builds a character in us, and it
Of
lets
course.
us really appreciate the good times.
Of course. Now, do I wish like certain traumas on people? Of course not.
Yeah.
But you know, you can't change the past as much as you want to.
Exactly.
Man, I would love to change the past, but then I would wonder how I would be now.
Exactly. Yeah, like, it's funny because like we always think sometimes, like, you know, going back and like doing things differently, but doing things differently could make you put you in a worse position than you are
Oh,
right
of
now.
course, of course. But I think it all also depends on people's individual traumas too.
Yes,
Like it's
for
hard
sure.
to lump this all into one thing because everyone's traumas are completely different, and also how everybody perceives their drama, like their traumas, are completely different as well.
Yeah, that's a big thing because like I feel, especially with this whole like mental health thing, mental health as a whole, like I feel it's always lumped together when there's so many different aspects to
Especially because like something that you and I could laugh about
Yes.
could debilitate somebody else.
Oh, for sure. Because, like, you know, I'm pretty sure we've both seen some fucked up shit in times. And it's like, we can laugh about it now, but, like, a lot of people, it's
To be
like,
fair, I think we both also have a dark sense of humor.
True.
I feel like I have to laugh about things or I'd cry.
yeah, I always say that. It's better to laugh than cry because, like, it's funny. I would always make, like, wheelchair jokes around people. And,
I
like,
love
people
that
hate
shit.
it. They hate it because they look at me, they're like,
Because they don't know how to laugh.
Exactly.
Because they're like, oh, if I laugh, they're going to get mad. It's like,
I'm making the fucking joke.
yeah, for real. Like, laugh. Oh, my God. Yeah.
You know, so
No.
it's like I feel like people really do need that like dark humor because it's way better to laugh than cry about it because at the end of the day we're all gonna go through shit.
100%. And unfortunately, as macabre as it sounds, we're all going to die one day, man. We're all going to get there, and that is what it is.
And I feel like since we are, laugh about the times in between.
Yeah, fuck it. Like, I have to laugh about it. Like, it's just who I am. Like, I'm that terrible person at a funeral who has to make jokes because she's uncomfortable with the human spectrum of emotion. And I remember back in school, there was this one friend we had, and she, like, was, like, my best friend and I were talking about our traumas, and this other girl just starts crying. She goes, "You guys are really fucked up." Because my best friend and I are laughing, like we are just making
Oh,
fun
God.
of the traumas we've been through. She goes, "You guys are so jaded," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but that's how we live." Yeah, that's how we live, though. Like we have to.
It's true. Like I feel like we can never dwell in it because like
No.
you gotta move on. You gotta live through. You gotta push through. Like you
Yeah,
said.
especially like I find, especially with mental health, you can just get your brain into such a dark space that like I need to find a way out
Exactly.
because I'll just stay there, and that's not a great place for my loved ones as well.
And that's so it's like, you know, if having a dark sense of humor is that flicker of light, then fuck it, follow
Yeah,
that.
I just don't post it on social media. You know?
Yeah.
Only my two friends know.
Yeah,
Like-
those are the people who know you know.
yeah, exactly. Like,
And that's how it should be, I feel, because like, you know, those are like, again, the difference between, you know, the internet and in real life, where it's like, you know,
100%.
sometimes, you know, not everyone needs to know how you are in real life, you know, because sometimes, you know, not everyone's gonna
yeah,
understand
also,
it.
not everybody gives a fuck. And I feel like an asshole saying it, but there's times on Twitter where I want to just write underneath someone's post, "No one cares."
I think a lot of people need to hear that, though.
There's just times where I just want to be like, this is so much information on social media. Like, I don't need to know that your vagina had BV the other day. Like, I don't need...
Yeah, no one cares to hear that. No one
Like, don't
cares
get
to
me
hear
wrong,
that.
girl talk. Like, I'll have girl talk with anybody. Like, fuck it. Like, in person, fine. But, like,
The internet did not need to know.
Yeah, the
about your
internet
vagina
doesn't
going on
need
like
to
that.
know. And this is coming from somebody who poses nude online. And I'm telling you, I still don't need to know.
So there you have it. You know, not every keep some things to yourself.
But see, that's why I also keep it to myself, as in, like, I just won't say anything, because, yeah, like, I still have those days, though, where I'm like, no one fucking cares.
But you know, like I said, it's always a balance of things. I feel like that's the one thing that you know you kind of like learn to maneuver through with all the things that you've been going through in your life is like having that balance of like.
I try. Like I have my good days and my bad days, of course.
Like
but I'm trying. That's been my whole method in life is just try.
Just trying. Now on the on the terms of just trying, like going forward now, like futuristic things, like what's going on, what's fuck. I can barely talk nowadays. Well, what does the future hold for you, Maddy? Like
Well, I'm really hoping to just get a place of my own. Like, I would love to own a house with a flower studio in the back or something like that. Like, I would turn either the garage, or I have plans of like building like a shed studio in the back. Right now, I'm trying to not plan my life like 10 years in advance like I used to. I'm trying to just let it be, especially because like, my father is really sick, so I'm just focusing on processing that and dealing with all the financials of that and everything. And just going from there. Like, I would love, obviously, to continue my future with flowers. I love it. It's something I'm really enjoying and finally happy with. But otherwise, yeah, like, I'm just trying to take things slow, especially with what's happening in the world right now.
I definitely agree with that, because I always feel like, especially like after I got shot, I was a person that I hates to plan like really like too far ahead, because it's like at the end of the day, like I've been in a situation where like I could not be here, so I'm not really trying to plan too far ahead. And
like, I can admit that like I'm a bit of a control freak. I can admit that I'm a control freak, and that makes me great for like employment, but for everyday life it doesn't. Like
so it's best to like all right, we're just gonna take it
like I'm just gonna mellow the fuck out for a little bit. Like, I would love to get back into doing like art shows and stuff like that, but that's just something that if it comes up, great. If it doesn't, I don't care either. So I think my main thing is just I would like to buy a house. Obviously not in Toronto, because no one can fucking afford it.
Oh yeah, of course. Don't get us started about that. Don't get us started about that topic.
Yeah, but I don't know necessarily like if I want to live in Canada or I want to move away, but we'll see.
So, interesting topic. Before we cut this out, if you were to move away, what would be the destination that you would go to?
There's a couple. Okay, so
top 5.
Okay, so I used to also live in Germany, because my family's half German, half Israeli. So we have the German side, which Germany is like cool, like Europe's all right. But I would probably either choose like Sweden or South Korea.
Oh, going back to South Korea,
for real, South Korea, beautiful, and I loved like the people there. Great people. Like I said, like everything is relatively cheap. It's also just like a beautiful country. Now, to be fair, Canada is beautiful as well. I was one of those that when I immigrated to Canada, my family was like, we're going to do a road trip across Canada so you can see all of Canada.
Oh, wow. You had the lucky experience.
Yeah, except for like after a while, it was just like, oh my fucking God.
Yeah, when you're in the middle, it's just nothing.
It's just nothingness, it's so nothing.
Nothingness. It's just like
it's so boring, because like in Europe you fucking drive, you're in another country. I'm in the same fucking province for like 3 days.
Yeah, it take you like 2 days to get out of Ontario. Right? Out of Ontario, you didn't even go nowhere yet.
We're going nowhere, but in Europe it's like, oh, an hour, you're in Italy now. I'm like, wow, magical.
See, that's one thing I do kind of want to experience, that like, because like with being in such a big country where it's like everything's so kind of like far away from each other, I've never had that. Like, okay, yeah, a couple hours.
I highly suggest, if you do travel in the future, I did this. I went to England and then I took the train right across Europe.
I've always heard about that.
And it's a beautiful train, and I find it was a lot of fun, because you're also not dealing with like the flights bullshit and everything. It's still like annoying because you're on a train, and as someone who's a cigarette smoker, I'm like, oh God,
I need to get outside.
But I think I handled it better than I thought, considering I flew from South Korea to Toronto, and that's a 24-hour flight.
Jeez.
They stop off in Hong Kong and then you go to Toronto, but still. But I highly suggest the train is the best part, because you can get off at different stops and like actually like see Europe and stuff, and it's so much fun, because it was like from England to France is like 2 hours.
Ooh.
Barely, and it's underneath the water. It's a channel in the water, so you go right underneath and you come out right in Paris.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, now we got a little geography lesson here on the pod. You know what I'm saying? Just in case for you guys who didn't know.
Listen, I love writing out people like maps and shit. Like you go here and you go here and you gotta go eat from here. Like I'll do it. I love that shit. See, once again, the control freak. I don't watch Friends, but I've heard I'm very much a Monica.
Honestly, now that you said that, I do get the Monica vibe a little bit. You know,
a little OCD.
Monica mixed with Phoebe. You know?
I'll take that as a call. I love Phoebe.
Yeah, Phoebe's the best.
Nobody likes Ross. It's okay.
Ross is just kind of weird.
No, he's the worst. When I didn't watch Friends, but my friends watched Friends, so I would watch. Yeah, I'll say it. I watched that episode where he freaked out because his son was playing with Barbie dolls instead of G.I. Joes. I was like, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up, Ross. Which is kind of
awkward because he's the paleontologist. Like, you know, you play with
dinosaurs, motherfucker.
As a grown-ass man.
And it's also like, you're the dumbass who was like, yeah, I'm going to let my wife sleep with another woman while I watch. Like, get the fuck out of here, man. Like, you know what you're doing.
And didn't think
you're
that she was
you can just admit that you're a cuck. Like, you don't need to like be like, I can't believe she cheated on me, so I'm gonna blame women for the rest of my fucking existence.
I mean, that's what he did. He did get divorced 3 times.
This is true, but there has to be a reason why. It can't just be her.
Oh no.
Yeah, for real.
It was Ross.
Ross, the worst. God.
Well, anyone named Ross, please stay away from Maddy. You know.
Or Rob.
Okay, you know.
I mean, I got a few names. It's okay. We can have our like Death Note list or whatever. Because I watch a lot of anime. Also, by the way, my hobbies include anime.
Oh, see,
I should have brought that up.
Yeah,
anime.
That definitely makes a lot of sense with the whole South Korea thing too. Like, you know, it kind of all.
I'm a little bit of a weeb, yeah.
You know,
anime, because anime is what makes me cry.
Really?
It gets me to actually have emotions. Legit.
Wow.
Like, I'll watch these beautifully done animes and I'll just be sobbing for days. It's like my way of releasing all the pent-upness I have within me, because it's like, oh, this is sad, so I'm going to make myself even sadder and I'm going to cry.
It's like a combination of the two, and then you're just like, you know, I'm going to deep dive into this with my own
and
thing.
there's also like so many animes that like they tug at your heartstrings.
Very true. The stories are deep. I'm not going to cap and act like, you know, I've read a lot, you know, or many. You know,
well, if you ever want to have a good cry, I'll send you a few, because there's somewhere, especially because a lot of them like involve children, so your heart is even like, oh my god, I remember when I was a kid and all that stuff.
That makes sense. They know the heartstrings to tug at. That's why.
Yeah.
You know?
I know that anime gets a bad rep because obviously like a lot of fan service and shit, but yeah, you can ignore that.
Just like, you know, just look over that part.
Yeah, you know, just look over it or whatever. Yeah.
Oh man, but you know, I really did have a great time. Like having you here.
Me too. I was so nervous for this, honestly. Like I'm gonna fucking stutter.
I was stuttering more than you.
And I'm like, I feel like I'm such like a boring person in the sense of like I just live my life. You know what I mean?
I feel like a lot of people do, and that's like why I wanted to bring people on the podcast.
No, of course, you know? I saw it, and also like obviously being best friends with Ashley, I saw it too. I was like, oh, this is sick. Like this is really nice, because I love listening to podcasts too. Mm-hmm. But it's always like, you know, it's usually true crime podcasts.
Oh no, same with me. I love that too.
Or Canadaland is a good one, really good. I love like listening to people being unhinged. I think that's my whole theme of life, is being unhinged.
Yeah, and like one thing I love to bring out, it was that like, everyday people, we all have a little story to tell.
Oh, of course.
And that's why I love, like, you know, giving people that opportunity to be like, look,
100%.
This is like, what's going on.
100%. I love that shit too. Like, I always like, even, you know, talking to homeless people, man, they got a story. Yeah, everyone's got a story.
They probably got a better story than most people.
Oh my god, I know. Sometimes, like, when I used to work at Starbucks, it was near a homeless shelter, so they used to come in and like I used to find out like all these interesting stories, and it was like, fuck, talking to people is actually pretty chill sometimes when you don't hate everybody.
Exactly. You know, when your mind opens up, it's so much easier. You know?
Oh, of course.
That's just the thing. But you know, slowly people will recognize that. See what I'm talking about? I'm just more tongue tied than anyone else here. This is getting fucking ridiculous.
Don't worry, my hand's sweating over this fucking.
It's okay. We're gonna call it a wrap. You know, saying we're gonna wrap it up here. You know, saying Wheel1 podcast. My good friend Maddy came through. We killed another one, and we're gonna see you guys again on the next one.